Hey, what's up everybody, Crazy here, back with some more Ghost of Tsushima news, and today we have some really awesome details to go over. If you've been wondering, or if you had any questions about the game, especially following the most recent reveals, we had a ton of answers for the past few days from the game developers as well as people working on the game. I'm gonna go over that in just a little bit, but it's also been confirmed that Ghost of Tsushima is going to indeed release for the PlayStation 5 as well, and it's not going to be the only game that's going to follow the same route. So let's jump right into it with all of the details, and as always, a thumbs up on this video would be super awesome. I also want to give a huge shout out to Instant Gaming once more. If you want to buy games at the cheapest prices you can find around, definitely go ahead and check out the links in the description box down below, and you're gonna get some really awesome discounts. Anyway, let's begin with the PlayStation 5 news. Of course, just a few more days until the huge reveal, so I cannot wait for that, but we do have confirmation from Sony that they have told developers that all of the new PlayStation 4 games that will be submitted for certification after 13th of July must be compatible with the PlayStation 5 as well. Furthermore, according to Eurogamer, both The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima will receive PS5 support, despite the fact that these two exclusives will have been submitted for certification way before July 13, which is honestly something that we were already expecting, especially since Sony has announced in the past that yes, almost all of the library of the PlayStation 4 in terms of exclusives will be compatible with the PlayStation 5 as well. This just reconfirms the news that we already knew, which honestly sounds amazing. It means that we're gonna benefit from all of those new techs that make up the PlayStation 5, including those very fast loading times, which honestly sound really amazing. Nonetheless, we do have a ton of information coming up from people working on the game. Of course, this includes a recent interview with Nate Fox and Jason Connell from Sucker Punch. So one of the first questions was, are there different types of weapons apart from a sword, like axes and spears? And according to Jason Connell, Jin's katana is a family heirloom and will be with him from the beginning to the end. As a lethal samurai, this is his main weapon in fighting against the invaders. The Sakai blade is something that will grow with Jin throughout his journey. As Jin grows into becoming his feared samurai warrior known as the Ghost, so too will some of his abilities and tactics. Learn to use a bow for picking off enemies at a distance, or use throwable kunai and smoke bombs at close proximity. We won't share all of these details before launch. We'd like to have something for players to discover. And later on in the interview, he also confirmed that there are multiple ways to improve the weapon, both in terms of stats as well as its appearance. So this is basically what's going to go down when the game releases. We're gonna have that katana as the primary weapon, but we're gonna be able to upgrade it both in terms of stats and its visuals, like it was already obvious from some of the gameplay footage, but everything else on top is going to be like well, side weapons or secondary weapons, like those bows and arrows, the dagger that you can use as a ghost, or the kunai and the other throwables like the smoke bombs, which kind of sounds like a bummer a little bit, but I guess it makes sense. There's a huge like emphasis on the samurai part, so I can see why they are putting such an emphasis on the katana. And I would also argue that we might get different types of katanas as well, because we already saw Jin using side katanas with the wakizashis, which should be much faster, more agile, but might not deal as much damage as the big two-hander on the back. So again, it remains to be seen if there's going to be a distinction between these, because from the footage there appears to be. And by the way, on the subject of dual wielding both swords at the same time while attacking, that's also not going to be possible. Jin was trained to fight with a single sword in a traditional style, but when Mongols invade, he often finds himself radically outnumbered. To even the odds, he begins to use thrown weapons in the middle of a fight, mixing range and close quarters attacks with deadly results. And they think that there was somebody who made an historical analysis of the game, and they have also concluded that at the time the story is set in, samurai weren't yet used to dual wielding and using two swords. That actually came much later than the time period that is happening in Ghost of Tsushima. Another big question was in regards to the difficulty settings. Is there going to be a difficulty slider? And even more so, are enemies more aggressive at higher difficulty levels, or do they simply have larger HP bars? To which the answer was The game does feature 3 levels of difficulty, which are easy, normal and hard. On hard, the game is fair but very challenging. Mongols are more aggressive and players must be precise to pull off extraordinary moves. By comparison, easy is for players who want to explore the island, enjoy the story and still be occasionally tested by a worthy opponent. No matter which difficulty players choose, we never increase the health of enemies. This is to maintain the lethality of the katana. Our combat is all about the player's skill, which honestly sounds like the best route that Sucker Punch could have picked, and I never liked the bullet sponge enemies that take way too long to take down on higher difficulties. I think that this is something that every developer out there should do for their game instead of going with the lazy route and just bumping up the HP pools. Nonetheless, since we're still on the subject of combat, one big concern that I've seen a lot of players having was in regards to the physics of arrow headshots and the fact that the backwards force seemed to be a little bit too unrealistic and over the top, but otherwise everything was looking great. And I kinda agree that was the case. It seems that according to Nate Fox, that is indeed intentional and that's what's going to be in the final game, at most probably with some slight adjustments here and there, but the reason for that is because the game features 2 types of bows. One of them is the half bow that we saw in the samurai portion of the gameplay, the other one was the long bow in the ghost portion, and the long bow is the bigger one that shoots way bigger arrows and projectiles that deal way more damage and can penetrate like armors and whatnot. So the long bow packs a much heavier punch and thus the power to knock enemies back, as you saw in the state of play. Moving on, there was also the subject of villages and towns, side missions and other content besides the main story. We already covered this in a previous video, but this also sheds a bit more light of what to expect when the game does release. So you are going to get access to a ton of side content in the game. You're going to run into a number of other characters with their own stories and their own struggles. If players choose, they can dive deep into these side stories, forging a higher bond with these brave people fighting to save their home. Not only do these stories provide a greater perspective on the invasion, but they offer some of the best rewards in the game. And later on in the interview, he clarified that all content outside of the main story offers a variety of rewards. It could be collectibles, resources, or charms like we've shown in our state of play video. There are even a few side missions that offer sets of armors as a reward. So for example, you could go out there and explore or maybe complete a side mission and this could reward you a set of armor or maybe an armor piece, and it's been confirmed that armor sets actually consist of different pieces, like we also saw at one point in the state of play, with headgear, torso and other parts being distinct from one another. And yes, according to the interview, these seem to be interchangeable and you can mix and match sets to go with a hybrid build or build like the best possible build that you can for whatever enemy is that you're fighting, which honestly sounds amazing. It's probably gonna give us a ton of freedom when it comes to making our own builds, and I cannot wait to actually drop some videos on that as well once the game releases. Also, since we're still on the subject of collectibles, it seems that indeed animals are going to have a ton of usefulness when it comes to crafting and upgrading gear. So one of the questions was, are you able to hunt animals for materials / crafting? To which Jason answered, while there are unique animals in Tsushima that are there to help guide Jin in his adventures, there are also a few predators that will be aggressive. Upgrade resources can be collected from these specific animals once defeated. So these creature encounters could go pretty much like what we saw in the state of play, like for example a bear attack out of nowhere that could attack you, or some other character that might even require your help, and if you take down that creature, it's going to provide you some reward that's going to be useful for crafting. It kind of raises the question, are these creatures unique, like kind of like a legendary creature system where you only kill these creatures once and they provide a one-time reward that's useful at crafting, for example a piece of gear, like for example some armor, or is it something that's repeatable and you can constantly kill them again and again once you encounter them? So it could go either ways. It could even be like a mix between these two, but I am glad that creatures do indeed have usefulness outside of the ones that we saw so far. Anyway, on a final note, we do have some other questions questions here that bring some clarifications as well on the exploration part of things. So in regards to the horse, we've seen a ton of trailers with different types of horses, which raise the question, can you purchase horses? Are these interchangeable? Or do you have only one horse that you can pick in the beginning of the game? And apparently yes, the latter is going to be the case. According to the interview, Jin's partner in the journey is his horse. Early in the game there is an opportunity to choose the horse you want to go on this adventure with, so it kinda sounds like Assassin's Creed Odyssey that was also letting you choose between like 3 or 4 horses very early on in the game, but it didn't have any effect on the gameplay, which I think this is gonna be the case here as well. If you like the color of a horse, just pick that one you like. It's most likely not going to change too much its behavior and its stats. Outside of this, we also finally found out that L2 and R2 can be used for 2 types of abilities. You can choose to use a healing ability or to perform the most intense attacks that Jin can use. So players will have to make the tough tactical choice between healing or landing a crucial strike, which is most likely what these special types of attacks are going to be called in the game, like for example the one with the samurai gameplay where we saw Jin using a special attack that killed 2 enemies at the same time, and one of them also lost one of his arms. So this could be the type of choices that we will have in the game once it releases. On a final note, and this time for real, what about the flute that we saw in one of the scenes? It remains one of the questions that has been not fully answered, but apparently you can play the flute whenever you like. It's the perfect way to create a serene moment and take in the view. And I think that this would be the perfect opportunity for like a meditation kind of ability, like in Witcher 3 or for example in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you use this kind of flute ability to play the flute and then time like goes faster and you can turn from day to night or night to day and just replenish your HP as well as your consumables. Maybe not, but it would fit that perfectly for a meditation type of skill. But yeah, this is it with the answers and the questions. I'm going to leave a link down below if you want to read the rest of them, but of course we've already covered these in previous videos. In the meantime, as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next one.